In among the many tribes rooted in the heart of the American Southwest, the Navajo, also known as the Dine, stand out for their rich traditions and haunting stories. Their ancestral lands span New Mexico, Arizona, and Utah, and their legacy stretches into the very fabric of American history, including their heroic role in World War II. The Navajo Code Talkers, whose language baffled Japanese cryptographers, played a critical part in securing victory in the Pacific Theater, but beyond the battlefield. The Navajo preserve something even older, tales passed down through generations. Stories of shadowy figures that roam the deserts and forests, creatures that do not belong to the natural world. To the Navajo, these beings are not fiction, they are a terrifying reality. Among the most feared of these is the Yi-Nald-Lushii, the shapeshifter, known more commonly today as the Skinwalker, a cursed being, part human and part beast. According to legend, a Skinwalker is a corrupted medicine person, once a healer who turned to dark rituals and cannibalism. Once transformed, they gain the power to move between human and animal forms, manipulating minds, casting illusions, and even mimicking voices. Such entities don't just lurk in old stories. They've been seen, and not only by Native Americans. Soldiers, modern American service members, stationed at remote military outposts, have come forward with their own harrowing tales. Men and women trained to defend against physical threats, brought to their knees by encounters with something else. These are their stories that understand the fears skinwalkers inspire. We must begin with a tale handed down through the Navajo people themselves. This story was first told by Art Tracy, Jr., whose family lived on the Navajo Reservation near Tuba City, Arizona, sometime in the 1920s or 30s. Art's mother had shared it with him when he was a boy, a chilling account that still echoes through his family. The young Navajo man worked as a ranch hand for a wealthy landowner in the arid western reaches of the reservation. One day, he requested a short leave to visit family across the border in New Mexico. He mounted his horse and set off, riding through the sun-scorched canyons, rocky plateaus, and barren trails. Somewhere along the journey, he paused atop a ridge to rest. That's when he saw it, a mangy coyote perched on a nearby hill. Without hesitation, he raised his rifle and fired. The animal collapsed instantly, but when he approached the carcass, his heart stopped. It wasn't a coyote. It was a man. Or half of one. The creature's upper body was unmistakably human, with painted symbols across its chest and long black hair. Its lower half was covered in matted fur and paws like a canine. It was a grotesque fusion of human and animal. Panic overtook him. He dragged the body to the edge of a canyon and pushed it into a deep ravine. Then he fled, riding his horse well into the night. He didn't stop until he reached his family near Shiprock, New Mexico. They listened to his story in silence. Then, with grave faces, they warned him, "Do not return." The creature had kin, and they would come looking for the one who killed it. The man never went back. Years later, in the 1980s, far from the legends of the past, a young Army private named Bob R. was assigned to patrol a base in Arizona. The terrain was dry and hostile, dotted with brush and scattered hills. On one moonlit night, while walking the fence line with a fellow soldier, something strange occurred. The two were scanning the outer edge of the base when a sound came from behind, inside the perimeter. They spun around. An elderly Native American man stood about 30 feet away. He wore traditional clothing, with long, braided gray hair that shimmered under the moonlight. He appeared unarmed, but clearly out of place in such a restricted zone. Instinctively, both men raised their rifles and shouted commands. The man didn't react. He didn't flinch or speak. Bob tried calling for backup on his radio. Only static. Then they both looked away for a split second. When their eyes returned to the spot, the old man was gone. In his place sat a massive rabbit, its head tilted, staring. They turned their heads, searching for where the man could have gone. A noise behind them. They turned again. The man was back, this time on the outside of the fence. How? The barrier stood nearly 10 feet tall, topped with barbed wire. That was enough. Bob and his partner ran. They never told their commander. For years, Bob remained silent. But decades later, with a few drinks in him at a family Thanksgiving, he finally admitted what they had seen. A skinwalker on the dry wastelands of Camp Pendleton in California. Marines train under grueling conditions. One unit, during a large exercise known as Steel Night, encountered something that still haunts them. They had dug in on a hilltop above a mock combat town. 3 Marines stood watch late at night. One was new, a boot, fresh from basic. He began hearing something, a strange clicking, like a garbled animal trying to speak. It reminded him of the sound from the Predator movie, but faster, more guttural, and it was getting closer. One Marine recognized the sound. He had encountered a skinwalker in his youth, and that same clicking had followed him then. The group fell silent and strained their ears. There was rustling in the underbrush, a screech. Then, using a thermal optic, one of the Marines spotted a figure. A deer, but standing upright. Like it sprinted up the hill, impossibly fast, dropping to all fours again and vanishing over the ridge. They named their squad Skinwalker Guns after that night. Not as a joke, but as a reminder. In 2021, as the Dixie Fire raged across Northern California, National Guard troops were stationed to block roads and prevent civilians from entering the danger zone. One team was standing around a portable floodlight. When they heard a woman screaming from the trees, they knew mountain lions sometimes made sounds like that, but this scream sounded human. Too human. The lieutenant shouted, "Hello?" And the forest shouted back, "Hello," in the exact same voice. Not an echo, not a delay, a perfect mimicry. Every man ran for their trucks and locked the doors. Something inhuman had answered. A military police officer stationed at Quantico in Virginia had always loved being alone on patrol, especially in the wooded western ranges of the base. The quiet, the space, the chance to hunt and scout. But one night changed that forever. He parked his vehicle and walked half a mile into the trees to check his trail camera. Sitting quietly in his tree stand, he reviewed footage when he heard footsteps. Not animals, human footsteps. He turned off his flashlight and waited. In the dim moonlight, he saw what looked like a deer just 20 yards away. But instead of running, it began slamming its skull into a tree. Over and over. Bones cracked. Blood spilled. Then it stood up, on 2 legs, and turned to face him. It had no eyes, no expression. Then it spoke. "I know you're there." The officer was frozen. It dropped back onto all fours and vanished into the trees. It took him a month to return and retrieve the gear he'd left behind that night. When he did, he found the tree splintered, blood on the ground, and what looked like bone fragments. Legends of skinwalkers aren't fading, they're adapting. From ancient ceremonies to military bases, from desert reservations to wildfire zones, these beings remain at the edge of our understanding. Some say it's myth. Others say it's mass hysteria. But when Marines, guardsmen, and police officers all report seeing the same thing, something part human, part animal, with a voice that doesn't belong, it makes you wonder. Perhaps the scariest part isn't what they saw, but that they all saw the same thing.